So guys, I'll repeat this. Hey, everybody. Chat is on. Please do not use the Q&A section for asking questions. Use the chat, and I'll reference your name so you know that it's you that I'm talking to. It is, and we always do this, it is private chat. So, well, that keeps things running freely, and there's not an issue. We were glitching before when we had everybody's stuff on there. But I'll answer every single question that comes up and make sure you get a good answer of exactly what you're looking for. If I can't help you, Jeff is moderating. He's my business partner, and he will also jump up. Cheryl and Randy. Cheryl says, hi, guys. Randy says, Sean, comma. I think he hit enter too soon. If you guys could let me know you can hear and see me okay, that would be great. Oh, there we go. Randall says, good evening. We hear you loud and clear. Guys, there's two things here. There's a poll. That's going to give me an idea, and that'll help me on my questions, or rather my answers. It'll help me answer you guys effectively. The question is simple. Have you purchased a program from us before? And that's in there. Tab says, hi, Sean. Also, again, always use chat, not Q&A. And there's files you can download, guys. Those files, one is an overview of all of our programs, and the other one is pricing coming up October 20th. Jim McGee says hello from Ohio. Now, guys, it's wide open already, so any and all questions you have would be great. We can hear you here. Sean says, Brad. Hey, Brad. Nice to see you. Guys, just so you know, been loading a lot of videos up lately on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is Surplus Funds Riches, all one word. We're running into a lot of trouble, and it's not because Brad just came on here. It wasn't anything to do with him. And Julie Bowden says hello from Texas. Rachel, I'll get to you in a second. So a lot of people are buying lists from Fiverr, where they're also buying lists from a VA. I believe she's out of the Philippines, saying they have mortgage overage lists from Texas, Nevada, somewhere else. Guys, only trustees handle the foreclosure and the disbursement of the surplus in a lot of those states for mortgage overages, trustees being the attorney for the bank. So they don't give out lists, and you can't confirm without, in most instances, without a power of attorney with the claimant. Plus, they're estimating the overage based on some false numbers. So be careful if you're going to buy something out there or buy a list, especially if you see that it's a mortgage overage list from particularly Texas, Nevada. There's a couple of different. Rachel said, I was talking to a person in Nevada County, and they said they hold the funds for a year. Would you suggest to still turn in a file right away, even though we would have to wait a year? So, Rachel, that's a county-specific thing. And that's a great question. Let me let you guys know something. I actually had to jump on the phone today and help with one of the people we were dealing with, one of the claimants we were dealing with. Typical, some of the claimants, I have an all-woman staff, except for me and Jeff. It's all women on there. And I did that on purpose. They're highly intelligent. They can multitask way better than I can, and incredible team players. Okay. But sometimes we run across a person that just they're chauvinistic and they don't want to talk to women. So I jumped up and helped on this one. And one of his questions was, I don't understand, because the clerk was asking for additional documentation. He said, shouldn't it just be the law? Shouldn't that just be how it works? No, that's not how it works, guys. There's the law, and there's the interpretation of the law by the people in power. And unfortunately, in this particular state, the clerk of the court was elected. They didn't have to have any law knowledge. Okay, no law degree, nothing. We've actually had a clerk in the past that was a state trooper, and we made the claim, and the man's wife had died. It was a joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. That's how they owned it. She died before the foreclosure, so all of her interest in the property transferred to him. Thought it was going to be a slam dunk. The two daughters show up, daughters of the wife that died and she was from a previous marriage. The kids were. And the clerk said, because they made a claim and it was very heartfelt. Said, okay, well, we're going to split it with you. And we had to appeal to get that out. Don't assume that the law says this, that's how it's followed. This is another reason why we have attorneys, okay? Because we can do things like appeal ridiculous decisions. Randall, do you have a list of states that find your restrictions limits? So Randall, we currently right now, the way we do it, we always use attorneys and structured buyout. None of the finder restrictions or caps apply to us because we're participating in the claim, because we're giving them 10% of the gross amount being held by the court within 10 business days after they sign their documents. So we are participating in the retrieval, so we don't fall under any finder laws. Great question. Harry says he's going to be there on 10:20. That's great. Yolanda says, hello, Rochelle. Do you prefer white pages for research? So I wouldn't say I prefer it, Rochelle. I think it's a great use of research. You mean finding the people, skip tracing. It's a really good backup, especially the reverse lookup by address is scary accurate. And that usually helps us out in a roundabout way. What I mean by that is especially, okay, in surplus funds, right after the sale, we do a reverse lookup. A lot of times it's not the owner. It was somebody that was actually renting from them. And they are happy to give us the name of the owner, the phone number of the owner. They just are. When it's flipping property, similar situation because we're trying to buy it and there may be a chance that they can stay, so that can help too. But White Pages is one of our backups. I would say IDI data is way up at the top. Microbuild's great, not as far as accuracy in finding the claimant. I just saw somebody put something under Q&A. Don't, guys, use the chat section, please. So Microbuild is good at giving us possible relatives and associates. So when we mail and call, we're calling not only the claimant, but also the possible relatives and associates. And as you can imagine, our hit rate goes up as a result. I feel so lucky. Arnold, I found you before I spent all that money on the other guy. I am on the waiting list for the next entry into your program. It's not really a waiting list, Arnold. All that is the next time we will sell it is the 20th and 21st of October. That's the next time we're going to let people come on board with us. So you got to be there during that time period. By signing in and reserving your spot, it's a way for us, first of all, to know, are we going to have to shut this thing down a day early because we've got so many people interested this time around because we limit memberships. But what it also does is it gives us an idea of where we're at. So if we know going in, we know Thursday night, hey, we've got enough people reserving here that we're probably going to sell out Saturday, we're going to give people a heads up on that. You can add more though, I'm sorry. I've already started doing research and I think it is something I can really stick with. My question is, I've been looking at a few lists and going through the research motions. Some counties make it very easy. You're right. You have referred to a checklist of criteria to complete and submit. Would you elaborate on the list? Yeah. So Arnold, we're going to ask you to not only fill out our worksheet with title work information, in other words, show us that you researched to make sure there isn't any unsatisfied mortgages or liens on the property that you could find in a registered deeds department. But in addition, copy of the deed from when the last owner owned it, copy of the foreclosure deed as well. Main thing with that is when they owned it, which maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 2 years ago, versus when, and the foreclosure deed, when they first bought it, when it foreclosed on, the foreclosure deed is also going to reference the owner, so it's kind of a double check. And we need both those deeds. We also like to see a copy of the tax assessor's office information. It's kind of another way to check behind. And a copy of the page where you looked up the debt so that we know that you actually looked up the debt. You got to show your work. That's basically it. Jeff says, in Nevada tax sale surplus, the funds are held for 1 year and then dispersed after 1 year. California is the same way. So that earlier question regarding should we not go after it, you're certainly welcome to go after it. We structure that a little different. We've got a longer time period to go to wait on money. It does hurt a little bit, going after Nevada or California for tax overages as a result, just because it's an awful long time to wait. Julie, question about programs. In Diamond Bundle, new program voucher, can it be used on a newish program that is not in the Diamond Bundle, thinking wholesale redeemer? Absolutely. Any other program we got, Julie? Great question. Randall, what kind of lawyer do you need to use for judgment recovery? So some of the judgment recovery, actually the judgment recovery program we have, you can kind of do it without an attorney, honestly. But if you're going to use that, there are attorneys that just do judgment recovery. Two ways to find them. One is a simple internet search. Another one is looking up, going through the state bar and asking for attorneys that work with judgment recovery if you want to do it that way. Gary, Sean, question about BK Goldmine. Before I go forward on this one, BK Goldmine is short for Bankruptcy Goldmine. This is unclaimed money that's being held by the bankruptcy court. Has zero to do with surplus funds. It's just another unclaimed play. It's money that's left over when a bankruptcy happens. And I went through bankruptcy in 93. I had somebody steal from me. I had another business. Long story, but I went through it. And when you do, you have to report all the people that you owe money to. A lot of them don't even have judgments against you, against the person at the time. And they're blindsided. But you have to list everyone you owe money to and their addresses and so forth. Well, the bankruptcy court takes that into account. Whatever money they get or whatever they dissolve in order to get money to pay off creditors, they'll send out, basically divvy it up between those creditors, send it out. And it's probably not enough to pay everything off. But anyway, they do that. Well, a lot of times the check comes back because it was an incorrect address. And as a result, What will happen is it'll just sit there in unclaimed money in the bankruptcy court. It has, again, nothing to do with surplus funds. That's our hybrid that I can get into some other time. But you can work with the creditor because they don't even know the money's there. They didn't even have a judgment at the time. You can work with the creditor to return that. Now, it's a low deal. It's typically $1,500, but you can usually make 75% of that. And you do it yourself. It's very easy. But wondering the reason why you don't recommend pursuing if creditor and debtor are the same. That's because it was the person at the time of the bankruptcy, Gary, so you can't get a judgment. What we do is this is a really good question. We have a proprietary system where they're not assigning the money that's being held in bankruptcy court to us. They're assigning the debt to us, and now we're the creditor on that money. So we can go claim it in our name and then give them what we promised to pay them. It's a really good end run, but you can't use that with creditor, debtor, same person, and it's going to be much harder to make a deal with that person on that money. Hey, Sean, we are looking in South Carolina to do tax deed surplus with your 50. Any advice or issues with South Carolina tax deed surplus? Thanks, Brad. No, there's no issue there, Brad. It's fairly easy to go after tax overages there. I do think, and I know it can get tiring to work your own, to build your own lists for the panning that you were tearing up so much there. But I will tell you that it's making up far more than 50% of our deals right now. So while I encourage you to work whatever you'd like, that panning is pretty unbelievable. Demo, what is a good CRM to use? There's a lot of them out there, Demo. I like Salesforce. I think we're probably going to end up moving to them. There's a lot of other ones. There's even free CRMs online. Keep is interesting to me. It's Infusion, used to be Infusionsoft, Key EAP, and there's a couple other programs you can certainly look into. We typically don't give advice on that, simply because everyone has a different idea of what is intuitive, right? So I'd recommend you look that up. And a lot of them will actually walk you through where you can see what it looks like to enter data and look things up, and you'll get a feel for what matches with you. Best analogy I have is I have an Android phone, okay? Everybody I know and all my family members have iPhones. I can't use an iPhone to save my life, okay? And they have a hard time with my Android. So I hope you take this as good advice. I would just recommend that you look up CRMs and look and see if they've got something on there that'll show you how it works and see if the flow suits you, because it's got to match you, not just the data you're entering, okay? What are your thoughts of using a 1-800 number? Mark, I just put an email on that, or rather a YouTube video on that. Here's why you want to use a toll-free number and combine it with an answering service. One, answering service, obviously you're catching third shift guys, right? Where they're going home later or whatever it is, and they're calling in on the toll-free number, and you've got somebody live there to talk to them and ask them questions that you think are pertinent and to get their information. Now, here's the beauty. You're not only going to get the number the person gives the answering service. You're not only going to get the number that they gave them to call you back on. You're going to get the source number. And you want to know why? Because toll-free numbers, you cannot. Star 67. Toll-free numbers, you can't block your number. That's a big deal. Okay, that's my thought on that. Andrew, it seems that data sales in Florida are often already contacted in mortgage overage cases. It depends. Am I wasting my time? I mean, some reclamation almost me and Mara. So, Andrew, with Florida, there is some competition. What I would recommend is you work counties where there is no list on the county website. Call the counties that don't have a list on the county website. Now, some of them are going to ask you to send a self-addressed envelope with $5 or whatever, So what? No one is first of all, very few people are actually working the mortgage in general, except in the very large counties, which I'm sure you bumped into, mortgage overages. But if you go to a county where they don't publish the list online, and Andrew, there's a lot of them. There's over 20 of them. You're going to find far less competition. It's a really good question. Randall, my internet connection froze. I don't know if you answered this question. Do you provide a list of states that have finder restrictions limits? Randall, don't need to, because we use attorneys in a structured buyout. We give 10% of the gross amount being held by the court to the claimant as good faith money within 10 business days after they sign our agreement. The reason we do that is obviously it makes us convert more, but the other benefit is we don't find it fall under any finder caps or regulations. So that's why we don't need to have that list. All right. What is the time limit for acquiring overages in Georgia? Anthony, I do not know. Jeff might answer that for us. Although I will tell you guys, and I'm not being a smart aleck, Anthony, we get a lot of times we get questions from people who are like, especially like a support. If it's a question, it's really not a direct question for the book, but it's a question where, what does this word mean, for example? And we're like, why did you open the sports ticket system and do that? Use Google. Google is your friend. Anthony, you can probably look that up pretty quickly. If Jeff's moderating, if he gives an answer, I will repeat that for you. It should be showing up for you anyway. His stuff should show up. Andrew, are the extended lists that go out sometime a better strategy? Not necessarily. I think I answered that indirectly. Britt, to check for judgment enforcement attorneys, go to the Commercial Law League of America. Those attorneys are experienced on collecting judgments on a contingency fee basis. Thank you, Britt. It's a great nugget. Another professional organization, he says, is the IACC, International Association of Commercial Credit Collectors. That's awesome. Asha, I have a perplexing penning question. There was a case that came up and the court documents have a notice of surplus for $115,000. Unfortunately, there are 2 old mortgages from 99 and I couldn't find any satisfactions for them, so I know we are to assume they're still open mortgages. But here's the thing. Those 2 open mortgages add up to a total of 78. If they're subtracted from the surplus notice amount, it still leaves 37, which is still a bit over the required 35 per person. This is for panning, guys. It's only 25 for national. Or 20. In your opinion and with all your experience, do you think it is workable or a waste of time? Turn it in, Asha. We'll take a shot at it. Now, listen, you made the right assumption in the beginning of that. A lot of people go, well, 99, it's probably nothing on it. We can't assume that. If it's not satisfied, it's not satisfied. But yes, definitely send that in. Other people will go, well, it was 1980 and now it's 20, it's 43 years later, so it's gone. No satisfaction, no go, right? Because if it's not listed as satisfied in the court, we have to assume it wasn't paid off. Look, we got a deal right now. Just happened tonight. Rather this morning, I'm sorry. Got a deal in. It was a tax foreclosure. Or rather, I'm sorry, it was a mortgage foreclosure. Contacted, it was panning. So it was a mortgage foreclosure where there was an attorney, a trustee for the mortgage company involved. Got a hold of them, and the guy let us know, hey, you guys are not looking at this right. Our researcher missed something. What they missed was the property was foreclosed in 2014 for an HOA lien. The person we were going after lost the house in that HOA foreclosure. It was taken over by another company. That company has since gone out of business, and they got foreclosed on from the mortgage company. Understand something, guys. There's a reason that they say first priority or first position with mortgages. So in that state, okay, in every state, tax man comes first. That's top, first in line, give me my money. They got to get paid first. Tax guy gets paid first, period, the end, okay? I'm not going to get into super lien states that changes this up a little bit, but tax man comes first, then first mortgage, second mortgage, whatever. Anything that is not, and it's an order of recordation, unless it says, the first mortgage says, okay, I'm going to subordinate to the second. But now we're getting a little deep. First mortgage, second mortgage, HELOC loan, right? All right. If the HELOC loan forecloses, that first and second mortgage had a priority claim. So if they never responded to the HELOC, the third mortgage, so to speak, foreclosing on the property, and you bought it at foreclosure, that second mortgage, anything below the third, the HELOC loan was kicked out, right? There was a lien, whatever. That's gone because you bought it at foreclosure, right? It's gone against the property, not against surplus. Don't mistake this, but against the property. That second mortgage can come in, or that first mortgage can foreclose. That's what just happened. HOA loan foreclosed on this house in 2014. The company that bought it got foreclosed upon, or rather, the property got foreclosed upon by the mortgage that was in place 9 years later. Took them 9 years to finally figure out to foreclose. Okay, so who's entitled? Well, our researcher said it was that person that owed it. They missed the HOA foreclosure, that it had transferred to another person at that point, a company in this case, and that company is entitled to the overage. Unfortunately, that company went into bankruptcy a couple of years ago, and it's difficult to find people. So stuff gets wacky, okay? But just so you know, you've got to understand how things work. Okay, perplexing. So what the point of all that, Hasha, is those mortgages in terms of surplus, they're still entitled until you can prove otherwise. And guys, you can't. They're never going to respond to to your request for information on a payoff on that loan that's settled. They're just not. Okay, Brett, I got it. You're answering that thing again. Patricia, when you are researching a tax sale property, do you need to send in a copy of the warranty deed and the certificate of purchase received by the grantee when you're researching a tax sale property? Well, it's not always a warranty deed. It's the deed. You need to turn in the deed, right, that showed the ownership prior to the sale and the foreclosure deed showing the transfer. The certificate of purchase, yes, I believe you're talking about Florida at this point. Brett, generally, conversion questions. Britt, go to Surplus Funds Riches. That's our YouTube channel. I did a great video on that to give you an idea of how all that works and what all the variables are and how you can minimize the variables, things that are going to negatively impact you. I'm going to lead you to that because it's so in-depth and it's a great video on conversion. Jim, if you go it alone, what's percent I can keep on a deal if I front the monies on it? So, Jim, typically we pay, like when we're in the $20,000 to $25,000 range, we're going to give the owner probably 50%. Now, before anybody freaks out, remember, we're always using attorneys, right? We're also having you guys on board, right? So we're going to pay you. So I'm going to pay a researcher, let's say on National Surplus, 8% of the gross. I'm going to pay 50 to the owner, and I'm up to 10 or more to the attorney. Now, you're not hiring other people. So in that instance, I'm making 32%, right? So a couple things happen. You go, once we hit 50,000, we're giving them 60%. And that's going to still be about 10% to the attorney because they're going to take a higher dollar amount, which is going to be about the same percentage. 10% to the attorney, and then whatever I'm paying you guys. So I'm making a little less. Once I hit $100,000, I'm paying them 70%. So I'm making far less, but I'm still making a good chunk. At the 100,000 mark, believe it or not, those of you guys with panning or P16 or whatever, you're making better than I am. 50-50, you're making better than I am. Hasha says, thanks, Sean. You're welcome, Hasha. Rachel, I was Hasha, but okay, last example, could they buy that business in Zombie Business Program and get the surplus? So that business went into bankruptcy. I'm going to pull up Pacer tomorrow. It's funny you said that, right? Because I'm going to have to check that out. But I have a feeling that they were an investment company, right? So when they went into bankruptcy, they just went, cool, everything's yours. So the bankruptcy court is entitled to it, and that's where the surplus hybrid would come in, where we teach you how to talk to the bankruptcy court about telling them where it is, because they're never, or hardly ever recorded at the county level. A surplus hybrid teaches you how to go after that, and that's what our play is going to be. In this instance, they went into bankruptcy, so no. Let's say they didn't go into bankruptcy. Let's say that it was a company that owned it, they didn't go into bankruptcy. Could you use Zombie Business? And it turns out, yes, they were out of business. Okay, they were actually had it revoked. Now, just so you guys know, when you see a status of revoked on a company in a state, okay, usually with the Secretary of State's Department. When you see that, that doesn't mean it can't be opened back up. That usually means they just didn't record their yearly. They're supposed to record every year what that they're still in business, and it's just a check-in. If they don't check in for a number of years, they can get it revoked. You can still reinstate it. So the answer, after going through all that, the answer is yes. You could use a Zombie Business Reviver as long as they didn't go into bankruptcy. You could use a Zombie Business Reviver to go after that. That's a great question. Andrew, boy, you're just stuck on this top states thing, aren't you? Top 5 states off the top of your head for mortgage foreclosures, in your opinion, or top 3? I'm assuming you mean overages, not foreclosures. And top 5. So I would say the top 5 states. See, we're getting them from everywhere, guys. Montana, Louisiana, Alabama, Arizona, Minnesota, mortgage, right? All over the place. If you had the panning program, which you can get in the Diamond Bundle only, you could work a couple of really good states. Yes, not Wisconsin is right, Rachel. But top 5 mortgage. But you know what, Rachel, mortgage, you could work. North Carolina, but you'd have to have panning to do that. Texas is very powerful, but that's another panning. South Carolina, too. I've seen people have a lot of good luck with Ohio, Tennessee, West Virginia. We've seen some good luck from. Surprising amount from Montana. Really surprising amount from Montana. good Lord, Nevada, Arizona. And we've got stuff from all over the place. There's some of them have very short claim times, but all over the place. Maryland, Virginia. You'd be amazed what's out there. I'm sorry, I don't have a top because we get stuff from everywhere, and we get, we're getting over 150 minimum turn-ins a week that we work. So it's hard for me to say there's one state better than the other. I did already ask this as a support question, but I just find this weird. I was researching a file, and on the sheriff's deed, it listed a mortgage company as one of the defendants, but in the deed records, there was no deed of trust or other mortgage records. Why would this be? Is it actually possible there isn't a mortgage associated with the files? If it matters, it's Texas County. So, Julie, we care about, and I don't know what Jeff told you, but we care about the deed research, okay? That's what we care about. If you're not showing a mortgage, you're not showing a mortgage. It is rare where they're going to mention a mortgage that is in place. So make sure you're being very careful. And it may be an issue where if the last owner that you're showing is the person that's entitled to the claim, the overage, if they purchased the property or got the property, got transferred to them through a quit claim deed, be careful, see who the quit claim deed was from, because they might have had a mortgage against them. Quit claim deed just transfer the property, has nothing to do with if there's debt against it or whatever. So check debt against that previous owner if it was a quit claim deed. It's the only thing I can think of where that could come up. But just do really good research like you're used to doing on deeds. And point it out to us. Show us this stuff, Randall, I have Googled to find out where the most foreclosures happen. Okay, that doesn't, Randall, what you're doing, you're getting really caught up in it. Work where you get a list, guys. You guys are way overcomplicating this stuff. Randall, you're way overcomplicating this, okay? You can certainly look that up. But for instance, when you see a major uptick in the Northeast for foreclosures, that would normally spell opportunity. But in reality, there's a lot of sharks up there. Stuff tends to sell a little closer, right, to the actual value. And the current foreclosures that are happening, a lot of them are recent purchases. So, and I think you were talking about mortgage. So it's a different animal. You can certainly look where more foreclosures happen. But bottom line is, wherever you get a list, work it and call it good. Don't overcomplicate this stuff, guys. I'm going to take a quick look and see the Q&A. Mark, you must have come on with the other one. Anthony from Guyton, Georgia. I'm going to answer these guys. Try to use chat in the future. And by the way, there's a poll. Please answer that. And good Lord, there's 2 files you can download. Overview of our programs and an overview of pricing for coming up the 20th and 21st. Download those files quick because we're going to be shutting this down pretty quick. He says, how do I get my list after I partner with you? I teach you how. We teach you how to fish, Anthony. We don't give you lists. If we were doing that, we'd be giving the same list to multiple people. That's kind of silly. So we teach you how to get lists and you get the list. It's not hard. Your job as a researcher on nationals is to get a list and research data online using registered deeds. That's not hard. Neither one of those. When I buy your course, what kind of assistance can I expect? I'm switching professions. I'm worried about my learning curve. So, Jim, what you get is an initial PDF, an ebook, okay? That is a step-by-step, with screenshots. I mean, it takes you through step-by-step. It then has a link with a password to a resources page that has video training as well. What else is on there is we provide support. It's email-based through Jeff. That's my business partner. He typically gets back. He has 3 business days to get back to you. He typically gets back in 1. In addition to that, we have these live question and answer webinars twice a month. And of course, we will partner with you with the national. So your job would be just to research, get your own list, not hard, research debt to see what debt was, make sure there wasn't additional debt against the property that's going to eat the surplus. Fill out our worksheet with that, turn it in with us, and we take the rest. So if you're doing that, your skill sets there are getting a list and researching the debt online. Not hard to do. It also, of course, teaches you how to do it on your own, but you can come back to that later if you'd like, if you're worried about your learning curve. I hope that's answered your question. I think I just got a text from Jeff saying he shut it down, and that's because we're approaching 8:30. If you haven't yet, do me a favor. Let me know in the polls if, 62% say you bought, 37 not. That's fantastic. Next sale is October 20th and 21st. Starts at 10 a.m. Eastern time on the 20th. It will be over no later than 10 p.m. Eastern time on the 21st of October. We only do it 2 days a month, guys. All right, download the files, guys. I'm going to end this. We're done. I really appreciate it. Great questions tonight. And of course, look, download the files. right? They'll answer 90% of your questions, but if you still have questions after reading through that, my number, and I'm available 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. My number is 704. This is on our website, surplusfundsriches.net, 704-791-9398. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.